Hello, this is live stream number 3 with all the usual suspects plus a new one. Peter, 8 bits in the basement.
How you doing, everyone?
Hi.
How you doing?
Right.
Delighted to be here, I am. Absolutely flabbergasted and delighted.
Well, we are to have you as well.
Good. Excellent.
Right, so.
Flabbergasted and delighted.
What's happening
there's
there?
An echo. And there's an echo.
Sit before and set off with a bit of a delay on it.
Okay. That wasn't there a minute ago.
No, well, me, mate. Don't worry about it. Only me.
Right, so, Peter, you love the Atari 2600?
Love it. Absolutely adore it.
And also a VIC-20.
I do. I'll tell you, I like all systems. The reason I like all systems is that I've told people this many times, but the reason I like all systems is that with me, when I was younger in school, people were always, I prefer Commodores, or I prefer Amstrads, or I prefer whatever. Me, I just wanted a computer and I could not have one. So I would prefer anything. I remember at the time I wanted anything at all. So it kind of grew with me that way. I mean, when everybody else had a Commodore 64, I got a VIC-20. And I couldn't swap games or anything with anyone. So I was kind of stuck with the 3 I had that weren't great. And I did a little bit of programming, but I was never all that great at programming. But still, I had a kind of a love for the VIC-20 from that. And basically, I like any of the old computers because I just wanted to play games or type in stuff, or that was my thing, like growing up. And I think I was 12 years of age before I actually got a computer that I could call my own. And anything would have done me. And the VIC-20 was what I got. And that did me, even though it was well out of date at that stage. So, yeah, I love the Atari 2600. I really like that. I bought one of those kind of cheap, and I had kind of made a deal with myself that I would never buy anything that didn't have a keyboard. But when I saw the Atari 2600 for really cheap, I said, well, look, we'll break that little rule. And I kind of fell in love with that too. And well, that's kind of strong, isn't it, to say, I fell in love with a computer. I didn't fall in love with it. I just kind of liked it a lot. Exactly. And so I like the Atari 2600. I like the Atari 7800. I like the VIC-20 because I kind of have a history with that. The Commodore 64 as well because I have a bit of a history with that. Yeah. The color computer too, because I managed to pick up one of those, and there's a huge retro community all around the color computer in the US, and they're fantastic. So I kind of, I wouldn't say I'm part of it, but it kind of involved at times in that. And so I like that. To tell you, if it has a keyboard, it's plastic and it's about 40 years old, I like it. That kind of one. That's pretty much it. And even more so if it doesn't work and there's some kind of a chance that maybe I can fix it. That's another incentive, Yeah. But so I like games, I like programming, I like sitting in front of something that's broken for hours on end, and people say, Peter, you're absolutely crazy, man. What the hell are you doing there for the last 3 hours? I still got a black screen and it's making stupid noises. And I'm in my element. I really love it, What can I say? That's me. That's me in a nutshell.
It's that sense of satisfaction, isn't it, when you fix it? You know what I mean? And it's like, yes.
Oh, well, there is. Yeah, there's that. There's this kind of a elation thing, Yeah. There is. It's kind of, I don't know. Is it pathetic? I don't. Some people say that's pathetic. What's the point? I mean, the thing is old. It was useless when it was broken. It's just as useless. But still, no, I don't know. It's nice. It's nice to get it going again. It's nice to be able. When this thing wasn't working for maybe who knows how long, you get it, and maybe it was in storage for the last 25 years, and it wasn't working 25 years ago, and you spend a couple of hours on it. Now it is working, and you have to clean it up, and you can pass a couple of hours and really enjoy it with, playing games with it afterwards, or programming on it, or just learning from it. It's because all these things, old computers are the best way to learn a lot about the newer technology as well, I found.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice when you pick up a new system, isn't it? You know, and you don't know anything about it. I mean, I picked up the Atari 800 XL and the XE, the 65 XE, come in a storage hole, but I didn't have a clue with them. So, okay, I'm typing CAS load. Why aren't these games loading? And it was only until after somebody else had said in my comment, you know, you hold the options key and start for it to load machine code, and it was like, right, okay, fair enough. But it's nice to learn these new systems.
That's exactly it. They've all got their little quirks and whatnot. They've all got their little kind of, I don't know, I suppose a rite of passage to kind of learn how to use it or whatever as well. All these
personality.
Yeah, but, you know, there you go. And yeah, they're fun that way. It's like opening a new book each time, you know. And it's fun. It really, if you're into it, I mean, I can understand people who really aren't, and they say it's just a waste of time. And okay, fair enough. If that's what you think, that's what it is for you. But I mean, for me personally, I mean, geez, I really love these things. I really do. You know, it's nearly to the point of an obsession at times.
There's something about the 80s technology, isn't there?
And yeah, and even going back earlier again, you know, even back to, I mean, I got for a while, I never had any of it, but I was mad into, you know, reading about all that paper tape stuff and all that, the way those systems worked even though I'd probably never experienced any of it, or I mean, even if I had something that worked that way, and I go, what the hell would you possibly do with it? But I found it tremendously interesting, you know. So it's anything, be it on paper or even more so, be it the real machine right there in front of you. It's fun just to explore it and I don't know, to kind of get touchy-feely with it, you know, and breathe life into it if it needs life breathing into it, you know. That kind
of I know what you're saying.
It's always good.
More often than not, they do.
Exactly. Well, you know, if anyone ever gives you any stick over it, just ask them if they're into fixing old cars. A lot of people are into fixing old cars.
Well, you see, that's
the same type of thing. You know,
it's the same thing. It is pretty much the same thing. I mean, a lot of people have vintage cars as well, and they put their time, they put their effort, they put their money into that, and that's their bag and fair dues. You know,
it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I was born and bred as a mechanic, so you can understand being there. I mean, Neil, he likes restoring his minis and stuff like that and playing with that. I grew up with my father restoring cars for a museum and stuff like that in the past, you know. But would I rather grovel around on the floor underneath the car, or would I rather fix a Commodore?
Exactly.
I think I'd rather. They're a lot cleaner, even though sometimes they're not. But
sometimes they're definitely not.
Sometimes they're not, Jeff.
Yeah, stay warm in your room and fix it. It's great. I think my days of groveling underneath cars have gone, to be fair.
Mine too, as well.
Hasn't it?
I can get by with
some pads. Some pads, it costs you 40 quid to get them fit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do I really want to spend an hour or two groveling on the floor?
I swear
getting covered in shit for 40 quid.
I don't do much work with cars, but when I was growing up, my father bought, before I was born, he bought, but he had it, you know, through a lot of my childhood, a 1964 and a half Pontiac GTO, which, if you know any history of cars, that's the first ever muscle car that ever came out. And it was actually designed by John DeLorean, the same guy that made the DeLoreans that were used in Back to the Future. Yeah. So I grew up with that in his, you know, sitting in his garage, and it gave me an appreciation for the history of cars and how they, you know, progressed over time. And I get the same feeling with computers. It's nice to learn the history, how the technology, you know, started so primitive, but at the time very advanced, and grew over the years and changed into what we are using today. So yeah, if it weren't for my history with those old 80s computers, I wouldn't be the, you know, I'm a developer today. I'm not employed right now, but that's my profession as a developer, and I would never be there if it hadn't been for all this history that we get to look at. And it feels really nostalgic to look at these things again. Peter, you mentioned the Coco 2. I started out with an Atari 2600, I eventually got a VIC-20, so along the path that you're following. But then I switched to the Color Computer 1, 4K Color Computer 1, and then from that I migrated to a 3. I didn't have a 2 in between, but I've got, I think, 11 of them sitting in my lab right now that need to be worked on. But one thing I found is I'm relearning, like the Coco 3. You know how with the Coco 2, when you boot up a game, sometimes you have to hit reset till you get the color right?
Yeah. Well,
Because
on the NTSC ones, if you have the PAL
Yeah.
ones, they're black and white no matter what you do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But because of the artifacting,
That's it.
I had completely forgotten that by the time they released the Coco 3, there's actually, you can tell it which color palette to come up in using the F1 and F2 keys. I forgot about that completely. So I'm relearning stuff that I knew from back in the 80s.
Yeah,
And it's fun.
stuff that you've forgotten about, isn't it? You know, it's it's lost. Tibby, is it? He's got a good point on there. So, what do you think about the revival of the old machines? I think it's great. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
It is, yeah.
I think the community that's out there is awesome. I mean, we're having new games created for every computer every year. I mean, what did we have last year for 64? We had about 20, 25 games or something that were released for that last year. Which, you know, and it's great because, I mean, although these machines are going to die, they're going to die off with us. You know, they're going to get forgotten about in the past. People have got to remember where things came from, where we've come from. Kids come round to my house, grandkids come round to my house, and it's first thing, and the saying is, "Can I go on Commodore 64? Can I go and play on Spectrum today?" And it's really nice. They're only young, you know, between like 6 up to about 10, 11, and it's really nice that they want to play on these systems. They're fascinated with SX64 when they were playing Ghostbusters.
Well, generally as well.
We're creating the nostalgia now for them.
I think the
It's
kids,
got to follow through, otherwise it'll die off. We've got to keep it alive.
I think a lot of the games for the older machines, the 8-bit games, are better suited a lot of times to kids. A lot of the games that we play these days, they're so detailed and they're so full of violence and they're so, you know, that in some ways the old games are better for the kids. And it's really nice to see them playing the things that we played when we were young.
Yeah.
Wait, you know, only thing good with box art that we used to get back in the day.
Barbarian.
The box art was fantastic, wasn't it? You know what I mean? Was that Linda Lusardi, that?
It was, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Didn't everybody have the poster?
Didn't know that.
That's right. Yeah, everyone had the poster on their wall. I remember. Yeah, even people who didn't have computers had the poster on their wall.
Yeah.
Right next to Samantha Fox.
Yeah, it wasn't in the graphics, was it?
I think a lot of this stems back to the fact that all of the 8-bit machines, they were a lot more simple. Along with the arcade games, you could pick one up, you could put a 10p in it and play it, or a quarter in your case, Todd, and you could just play the game. You didn't need a 50 gigabyte download, 2-hour tutorial just to play it. They're instantly accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
The only problem with that was every time I did that, went down to the arcade and plunked my quarters into the machines and came back, I got yelled at by my mom for spending my whole allowance on video games. So.
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah. Well,
it's just fascinating, you know. Well, I was saying about grandkids and then kids coming around and looking at it, and you're sticking a poke in and it changed border colour. It's like, how have you done that? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I didn't know you could do that. But, yeah, they didn't understand that you could program a computer.
Yeah.
They don't get their head around it when
nowadays you get a PS4 or PS5. You can't. You play what's there and that's it. Whereas with the older stuff, you could, and it's a whole new dimension. Well, it's old, but I mean, for kids nowadays, it's a whole new dimension. It's a new way of looking at things.
You remember Big 20 manual?
It's the second dimension.
You remember Big 20 manual, Peter?
We have to introduce
the 20 manual and all the little speech bubbles outside of it, and this is a cursor, and it's flashing. that means it's ready. They're really nice, childish sort of thing to go through, but they were designed for kids, weren't they, to start learning and programming?
Yeah, but it worked as well because it was much friendlier than just black text on a white background. You know, it was kind of, it was pedagogic or whatever. Like it kind of spoke to you much more as a kid than a regular textbook would, you know. So no, it was a fantastic thing. But I think that Todd hit the nail on the head when he was talking about history and all that, even to do with cars or whatever. But because when I think about with computers and stuff too, the old stuff as well, it's not just the machines, it's the stories and it's the personalities as well that kind of feed into it and make it more interesting, you know, like said Clive Sinclair and the guys at Acorn and all that whole story between the kind of rivalry or the partnership in the beginning and the rivalry between Chris Curry and Clive Sinclair and the way the two companies formed. Of course, my only frame of reference is the Micromen film, which I must have watched.
I've seen that. It's good.
Yes.
But you know, there's that whole thing that feeds into it, and that kind of gives it even more of a personality and makes it more real. Well, to me, anyway. I think.
Peter, if you want a good story, one that you can look up is look up a gentleman named Ralph Baer, Baer. He was an engineer. He was working for the military. He had some ideas about using TVs more interactively. And he came up with a home video game system. And it actually predates by several years the Atari 2600. A lot of people think the Atari 2600 was the first commercially successful home video game system. It wasn't. There was a system called the Magnavox Odyssey. That came out before it. And it was Ralph Baer, and his story is pretty interesting. If you like those history things, if you look him up and read about him, it's a pretty interesting story too. Maybe not quite as interesting as Commodore, but still, it's a good read.
No, I mean I know of the Magnavox, but the personalities behind it I don't know of. I will take a look into that, and I'll have a little look and see. I will most definitely will.
I actually have an original Odyssey sitting upstairs. My parents bought it for me at a yard sale, what you'd probably call a car boot sale, back when I was a kid, and I had no idea what it was. And when I got it, it was complete. See, these systems were made for black and white TVs, and to get any kind of color, they used a Mylar overlay over the screen that would stick to it by static electricity because the screen was static. I had all of those, and I had all the cards. They weren't cartridges; they were just cards with little circuits in them.
They were jumpers, weren't they? They were more jumpers than anything else, I believe. Yeah.
And I had the whole set, and I've lost part. I mean, as a kid, I just didn't care about it because I didn't realize what it was. So I lost part of them. I don't have the complete set anymore, and that just kills me. But I'm proud to have that thing sitting up there. I haven't powered it on because I'm afraid of the parts that old. I think it was built in 1971. That's
it'll be fine.
Almost as old as I am, and I know I've got parts that are falling apart on me.
I think we all have.
We hear you. We hear you.
But yeah, that history stuff really does. It interests me. It interests a lot of people, and I think that goes somewhat to what Bibi was. I can't pronounce your handle. I'm sorry. What he was saying about the revival is that people are learning this history and how things got to be the way they are today, and what path it all took. And it's just fascinating sometimes.
Well, you're getting games, you're getting cartridges, you're getting hardware.
Exactly.
People, it's a whole scenario going on around every single system where, and not just the contemporary ones. Look at that Commander X16 thing.
Right.
So they're even dreaming up new retro machines, as if we ain't got enough.
Yeah, there's also and the gentleman in the comments mentioned it as well. The books and magazines. I mean, Zap magazine has had a revival.
New Amiga magazine, isn't there?
Christian Simpson, Paraphractic, is now editing Zap magazine. So
364.
Sorry?
Freeze 64 is a Commodore one.
Oh yeah.
Then you got Retro Gamer, which is probably the
Yeah,
biggest
there's an
name.
amazing
All this
one.
stuff's coming back. It's nice to have the physical things in your hands, isn't it? You know, rather than
Yeah.
going and buying a PS5 game, and when you get home, you open this box and you've got a code to put in to download it. You know, you haven't even got a disc. You can't play it off the discs or anything anymore. You know, it's just so it's nice to have the physical media, I think.
But in a lot of respects, things have gone full circle. Back in the 60s and 70s, you had a mini computer or transputer that were just dumb terminals, and they sliced up time to everyone, and all your stuff was on the cloud. Here we are 50 years later, and we're going back to the same shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Well, they discovered quantum computers, and what they discovered with quantum computers is instead of having a normal PC where it just gives you, you ask it a question, you give it the narratives, and it goes, "It's this." Straight, but it could be something else, but it doesn't. It tells you it's this. Where quantum, I'll give you a variant. He said it could be this, or potentially this. So it's got three ways. You know, a normal computer's it's either a 0 or it's a 1. It's on or it's an off.
Yeah.
Quantum can be on, off, and both, which I don't get my head around personally. But it's three.
On, off, and fuck knows.
Exactly. What I'm saying is,
It's
because
on.
it's got that variance, and
It's
unlike
on.
digital now where it's direct,
It's on.
we're going
Off.
to have to go back to analog systems to be able to talk to quantum computers.
Bloody hell.
So you're talking full circle. We're going to be going back to analog before long, I reckon. Or kind of.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, yeah, it will be a form of analog, won't it?
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, with today's technology, we can build quite better analog computers than back then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, who knows what they
Yeah,
will.
valve powered.
Yeah.
It's just mentally. You that, what were it, MH13, MH315 or something, that aircraft that vanished? That Malaysian flight that vanished.
Oh, yeah.
380, yeah, something like that.
Well, somebody's sort of traced it, and they reckon they know where it is, and they want to go have a last-ditch attempt to go and have a look and see if it's there. So they're just waiting now to find out whether they're going to be allowed to or not. And you know how they've done it? They've done it through ham radios, analog signals, because analog just goes out everywhere and it bounces back, and it will bouncing back off the plane. So they've tracked it with collected all the data, and they've tracked that the plane went down to the South Pole. So, but that's analog systems, you know. So I think we'll all end up going back to original gear. To be fair.
Yeah. The analog systems are quite robust, and usually when you're in the nature, if you're lost or something, powering on the radio can trace your location, so they can trace
Exactly. Yeah.
So you cannot do this with any digital technology, as far as I know. I'm not really expert, but you don't transmit anything. You're just listening to radio, and they can locate you. So that's fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that the old technology worked best.
Yeah. But just to refer a little bit backwards, what I like to do with the kids, I like to open Commodore 64, and I show every little details inside, and they are fascinating by this, is because they can see, okay, this is the CPU, this is the memory, this is the traces. They can actually see everything in there. So for them, that's quite amusing thing, because in today's technology, even those embedded platforms and stuff, there's not really much to see there. In hardware sense, everything is just tightly packed and in
VGA.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything on little balls.
Yeah.
It's another analog to cars, Joseph. You open an old car like my dad's GTO, you can look at that engine and see exactly what everything is. And you can almost step into the engine compartment and work on it. It's so open. And nowadays, you open a modern car,
plastic,
big plastic cover over it. Know what's going on in there. It's got computer stuff going on in it that you can't see, and so it's the same kind of thing.
Exactly.
The kids.
Well, the other thing is, but when we were younger, we didn't really understand how these things worked.
No.
Now we're all sort of around 50. You can understand these things completely. That's the other thing now. Looking back retrospectively, you can actually take the lid off a computer and know exactly how it works. And we didn't have that.
But you have to think about this. Back then, this was completely new technology. Nobody knows how this works except the guys who built the damn thing.
Yeah.
So nobody.
They didn't even put warranty stickers on them because they didn't think people would go in.
Exactly, yeah. Everybody's too scared to open them up.
Yeah.
I had a friend back then who actually did kind of understand it. I was 15, 16. He was a little older. He was actually going to a place called DeVry University, which is an electronics school in the States.
Okay.
And he kind of understood them a lot more. And he helped me do some modifications back then that I didn't understand what he was telling me to do, but he coached me through it and I did it. So there were some people who did, outside of the people who were building them, who understood them. But you're right, for the most part, if I'd opened up my Color Computer 3, I wouldn't have known a thing about what was going on in there.
Yeah, I didn't really know anything back then, back then I didn't even understand when we retyped the programs from the magazines on Commodore 64 and typing all those numbers. I didn't understand how the hell that works, because it was like pure magic. You retype some numbers and suddenly you have the whole game working. I didn't understand that at all. So yeah. But if you think about it, back then we didn't have standards. We didn't know what's user interface, what will be standard or what will not be standard. So every of those retro machines now, or machines back then, they try to solve a problem on their own way. So that's why we have such a different machines try to have their own special things and so on and so on. But that's the beauty. That's what I like about it.
And so enters MSX.
Oh yes, MXX. Yeah.
I really like that idea. I've never owned one, but I really like that idea.
It was a decent idea, but if you really thought about it, it was never going to work because you were never going to get all the manufacturers to build the same machine. They all wanted some kind of edge to make their machine better and sell better. It was a great idea, but it just didn't have a chance of working in the real world.
I will get around to firing up on a mister. Go on. Sorry.
Do you remember the 3DO? He tried it again, then tried to get everybody together. Remember
the
3DO, Gold Star? Yeah, that didn't work.
The only thing that got everyone to standardize was when IBM went cheapo and bought all their parts off the shelf to make the PC.
Yeah.
And everyone else realized they could do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then there was a standard. Poof.
Yeah, when they managed to hack their BIOS, and when the clones appear on the market, then everything boomed in that direction. Yeah.
Beep 73 has asked, what does everyone think of Perifractic?
I like it. I like what he does.
Yeah, I like it.
I like his video productions are quite funky and quite cool to be fair. Sometimes it's a bit. Sometimes it's I suppose it's like his own videos, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes
why didn't he even put that out? Another one's but yeah, I think he's pretty good. I like it that he's bought a Knight Rider, hasn't he? He's bought a kit now, proper one.
Yeah, if I'm sure you've all watched, he just did he's doing some restoration on the kit. The one that came out last week, I thought was interesting. He sent STL files to PCBWay to have a bread bin case.
Yeah.
He got a bread bin case, a transparent one, but still a brand new bread bin case for his Evo 64, and now he's got a all brand new, no old parts Evo 64 and a bread bin. So that right? You can. He's got I think he published the STL files to the shared projects on PCBWay, so you can go buy your own. But even the basic one is like $100 and some. So I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. But he's out there trying to save, our history. Building these old cases and and building new Commodore 64s
Rich.
with all
Yeah.
new parts. I appreciate that he's doing.
Joseph?
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with Todd. I think it's quite remarkable that he actually managed to pull it off and create a completely new Commodore 64. And all of his work is very appreciated in the retro community. So yeah, I like the guy. I like his channel. So
Peter?
Yeah, no, I'll be honest, I do really. And he was the one, it was in his video, I learned that you could put a board into a dishwasher and clean it. And I remember that was the first video I saw his, a number of years back. And I was blown away by the production quality. I mean, the guy, he does his own music. He did a couple of videos how he writes music. And he makes it seem really easy. But he does... If I could make a video even a third, not even a third, even an eighth of the quality that the guy can do, I'd be happy. No, I mean really, it's something else. As regards, there are times that it's a little bit, a little bit too, I don't know, sickly sweet. Maybe
Right, that's my problem.
But I can forgive him for that. I mean, I see what he's feeding into. It's not always about this is the hardware, this is how you do it. It's more, this is what I grew up with. This is how I feel about it. And I'd like to care for it now in its old age. It's more, it seems to be more kind of that. And I'll be honest with you, it works for me most of the time. No, I do. I've got a lot of time for his videos. And there's some videos I don't watch of his, but the vast majority of them, yeah, I'll click on them when I see them.
Well, I don't. The speech bubbles coming out of the dogs and shit like that.
Man, that's I know. Hey, it's kind of quirky, but it's I find it good. That's just me.
I think what he's trying to do is good, but it is very sickly, and it's not for me.
Can be at times.
No. I think you just said it were $500 for a printed case.
Sorry?
Anyway, $500 for that case.
He's got the money, hasn't he? That's the thing.
Yeah.
The dishwasher thing, I'd never do that.
Sponsorship anyway.
He's had pretty lucrative careers outside of, like he said, he does make music. He's been extras in
the movies.
Star Wars
movies.
She has it all, hasn't she? She was extras in Star Wars as well.
Yeah. So he's definitely got money, and he does throw a lot of money at his video production, which you can tell.
Yeah.
And to his sets. I mean, he's always doing something with his sets, and he built that Star Wars.
The arcade.
Arcade, which I love because that was always my favorite game as a kid. I had to go to the arcades and play that over and over again. So he does, he does have money and does throw a lot. I think, the saccharine nature, I think he's just trying to appeal to as many people as possible to get the retro message out there. But sometimes, you're right. It is a little sickly.
And the dishwasher makes me cringe. I hate it.
The dishwasher trick, I actually learned that from Adrian Black.
No, I wouldn't do it. No.
I
my personal opinion, eh?
I want to.
Because I worked from a bath department where we had the bathing boards that had been spillage and stuff. I wouldn't put them through. Maybe it's modern boards are different because you got the BJ underneath. But maybe older boards you get away with. But I wouldn't do it myself.
I haven't done a circuit.
How about a bit bath?
I'll throw
bath, scrubbed them up and tried them out. They're perfectly fine. But if you use the dishwasher tablets, it's got anti-corrosive properties in the tablets.
I put cases through the dishwasher. I do boards by hand. Now I do boards. I soak them. I put them in a bath of warm soapy water and scrub them in the water. I don't have a problem with getting an old board wet.
Yeah.
I think I'm afraid if I put them in the dishwasher, it'll knock things loose. Whereas if I'm doing it myself, I can be more careful with it.
Generally speaking, the board's waterproof. All the shit on the board's waterproof.
Yeah, but what I was saying
is the arsehole out of it.
I still think of older boards because obviously when you take the newer boards, when you take the BGA off, the amount of crap you get stuck under those, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Obviously, and they went in a vacuum oven and dried out properly and everything. But I think that's what puts me off because I've seen taking the chips off, what they're like underneath, and I always think that.
Yeah, but for through hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I think he's in back of his
mind. You know.
What do you guys think about ultrasonic cleaners for boards? I don't have one, but I've been thinking about getting one because
I do.
I don't own any of those.
What was that? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't own supersonic those cleaners, but I wanted to say about Bill Hurd. Have you ever watched his?
It's the one I've got.
Yeah.
And he was actually telling about how chips are not actually waterproof, because eventually the moisture will come inside and destroy the chip.
Well, ceramic,
no matter what.
that's true.
Yeah.
Ceramic will absorb moisture, but
Yeah,
I think plastic ones are probably safe.
pretty safe. Okay.
I think epoxy isn't hygroscopic, as far as I know.
That's a big word.
Yeah, I know. It's typical. After a bit of
You just Google that.
the ultrasonics, Josip. Yeah, who said that? It was Todd, wasn't it? Sorry, Todd. The ultrasonics. The only thing I'd be worried about is if you're putting ultrasonic vibrations through crystals.
Yeah, that would.
Or if you've got something like a cocoa board that's got an electromagnetic relay on it, you'd probably want to take them off first.
Yeah.
That's my only reservation. I mean, I'll just ultrasonic the shit out of a board.
Yeah, we used to ultrasonic.
It's no problem.
Well, we were talking about getting boards wet, and that's another, where you're dunking a board. I was just curious whether you guys thought, because I've been thinking about getting one. I don't have any boards right now that are dirty enough that I need to, but I'm sure eventually I'll find one.
They are good.
Field found boards with all the corrosion.
Yeah, they get to places you can't normally get. That's a good thing about them.
And they absolutely terrify the shit out of your dog.
Look, somebody's used a hose pipe and cleaner.
Yeah, why not?
Jet wash.
I don't know about where you guys are, but where we are, the water that's coming out of our garden hoses is generally contains more chemical contaminants than our tap water inside the house. So
it's not from the same supply.
It's from the same supply. It's just the pipes that they use for the external are not as high quality as the ones for the internal. So you get more what do you want to call it?
Legionnaire's disease.
Leaching out of the pipes into the water.
Wheels disease.
Oh.
Or at least that's what our parents always tell us, because as kids we go out and we're playing in the hose, spraying each other and whatnot. We have a habit of grabbing a drink out of the hose, and your parents see that. Don't drink out of the hose. That's dirty water.
Well, that's just overrated. Yeah, we used to get the same. I used to swim in the canal.
We swam in our local creek. So yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I think it was. Hang on. Let me just look at the comments. Someone asked about Vidi TV. Asked, what do you all think about modern recreations of old school hardware, like the Evolution 64 and so on?
If you can get your retro fix, do it.
Exactly, yeah. Apart from emulation.
I mean, not many people that have got TVs now that'll take a SCART lead and a composite in. They're all on HDMI, and if these new systems are coming out with HDMI on it, then it's a no-brainer for them. And if that's what they want to do, I prefer the original systems personally, but if I didn't have the original systems, then I will buy a reproduction one that has all the games built into it, and I can put it on the HDMI telly.
Yeah, I think my only complaint about them is the price. I mean, the Evo 64 is not cheap.
Yeah.
You've got to populate it. So, if you can get a hold of an old, dead Commodore 64 and build up rebuild it and make it work, it's less expensive and you're getting the old hardware at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So really price is my only concern about the new systems.
It's just problem is these days, isn't it? I mean, you've got a 64 and then you get a disk drive that's as big as 64, and then you've got to get a CRT TV to go with it, and that's huge as well. And then you've got to write library of discs and floppies and stuff like that, and it's a lot of people are stuck for space these days, especially over here in UK. We've only got little dinky little houses. My whole area for my house will probably be your front yard. So, do you know what I mean? So for that kind of thing, so you can stick it in front of the telly and play it, and not have all this accessories all over the place. Yeah, great. But in my games room, it's got to be the original stuff.
Yeah.
Well, VidiTV's also lumping in FPGAs with that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, does it? I mean, it's the Turbo Chameleon. I used to have one of them. They were absolutely awesome things. Standalone. The Ultimate 64. I have one of them for the same reason as Perry Fractic built that one to preserve it so he'd have it in the future. Yeah, good stuff. And that Ultimate 64 is just going to stay with me right through until they can put it in my coffin.
Yeah, I've got an early version of Ultimate 64, and they're brilliant.
Yeah, there is the other good thing about the reproductions and things like that, the new versions, the Ultimate 64 and whatever, is they can bake new features right into them, which is nice.
Yeah.
Things that we couldn't do back in the day, or giving them internet connectivity, which didn't even exist back in the day. So
yeah, the Ultimate 64 full-blown motherboard has Wi-Fi on it. It don't work yet because it's not written into the firmware. He's still working on that, but at least it's got Wi-Fi automatically built in. What more can you ask for? HDMI output, it has all the outputs you can imagine on the back of it, whatever you want to wire it up.
But it's not just the Commodore, is it? You got the ZX Next as well.
Yeah, it's 48K, but 128 in it or something like that. It emulates.
No, it does them all.
Yeah,
it does them all. Plus this new super duper ZX mode.
Yeah.
That goes crazy fast speeds.
Didn't they do a
Quite
clone
nice.
of it? Didn't they do a clone? Was it called an Uno board or something?
There is. I've got one.
Have you?
Yeah.
I want one.
I do love a bit of FPGA.
I want an Uno board.
Shit.
You ain't got two up there, have you, Lee?
You what?
You ain't got two up there, have you?
No. I can't remember where I put it. I've got it in a ZX48 repro case. There's silver and white. It's called an Ngo.
Ngo, that's it, yeah.
And yeah, the guy that hooked me up with all my Mr. gear, he did it for this as well. And I don't know how well this is going to come out. It's transparent and it's absolutely stunning. I've got a white key mat in it. I've 3D. Oh, wrong fucking side. I've 3D printed buttons and slots and that for it. It's got joystick ports in the front.
Great, yeah.
It is really nice, and it's not an Amstrad.
It should have been. It should have been like that.
But
didn't Amstrad make Spectrums, Lee?
Exactly, yeah. When did the same company?
Amstrad make Spectrums, Lee.
Oh, I believe they did in the end. They had to rip that off, didn't they? But there's a lot of FPGA systems out there, and the Mister is obviously the top of the pile, bar none. You've got the Mist, and you've got the ZX Uno, and the ZX Uno boards are the size of a Raspberry Pi, the first ones, and they're pretty good. Do you have any FPGA stuff, Peter?
No, I don't. I don't believe I do anyway. No, apart from a Raspberry Pi, but that's not FPGA. But no, I don't. But I'm all for it. I mean, if people don't have room or they don't want to, take the time, because it takes an awful lot to keep these systems going, even if they are working. It takes a lot to keep them going. So the likes of the Mister is a fantastic solution for anyone who wants to experience all kinds of machines, more or less just out of the box. And I'm all for it. But where I would invest in that personally myself is more for the likes of virtual disk drives and stuff like that. Cartridges, multi-carts and that kind of stuff for existing computers. Like the Coco SDC for the Coco line of computers, or there's all kinds of multi-carts for the Atari and nearly for Kung Fu Flash and all that kind of stuff. That's where I go for that kind of stuff personally. But no, there is definitely a place for it. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't any real wrong way to do this whole retro computer thing. So if that's the way you want to go, if that's what suits you, by all means, I'm all for it.
Exactly right.
I'm all for it.
Exactly. Same with emulation as well. I really like emulation. Personally, that's something I really like. It's not for everyone, but I think it's amazing that you can just load up a program and instantly you've got access to another machine.
Well, that's true as well. And that's something I was using in the beginning. And I remember posing the question to myself many, many times, why would you bother buying these old systems when you can use emulation? And it was only afterwards when I got like an Acorn Electron that I realized, well, there is kind of a difference,
There is,
between the real thing and the emulation. There's limitations, there are little differences. And to have the real keyboard and all the rest does make a difference as well. But again, if you're not into all that so much, but you would like to experience it, emulation is a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah, it is.
It truly is. I'm not going to spit on any of that stuff at all. I think between emulation, FPGA, whatever way you want to do it, if it pleases you and if you have a good time doing it, that's the way to go. That's the way to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I were going to, go ahead.
Go on, Todd.
I was gonna say, if I was going to program today on any of these old machines, I would probably do my programming in emulation and then move it to the bare metal for testing.
Yep.
Just for ease of typing on keyboards, isn't it, and things like that these days. It's what we're used to. Things run faster. You can change things quicker, can't you? I suppose.
Well,
and if nothing else, the assembler would run faster.
Yeah.
Say the only emulation I use is the arcade machine, because obviously I can't have all them in the house anyway.
And they're good. The emulation for arcade machines is superb.
Yeah, name is brilliant, exactly. Yeah. That's what I like. Yeah, but say going for the Atari, I just want to play in the original hardware. I don't know what it is. It's just something about it.
I think it's the same sort of thing. People have the same sort of need for that tactile response, like vinyl records.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
I think it's a similar sort of human need, I believe.
Well, the sound's different. The sound's better off a vinyl record than it is off a CD.
6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. The richness of the sound is definitely better off the record, but you don't get crackling and popping off a CD.
No, you're spot on there. But
the music I listen to, you really want it on a CD rather than a record.
Yeah, I think I spoke to you about it on another stream. But my daughter will come round one night and they had new Euphoria music playing, and she said to me, "What's that?" I went, "You know what it is." She went, "Yeah, but what you playing it on?" So I opened up my stacker system door. I've got a full stack of Denon system, and then the ejected tape and showed her. She went, "Get away! It's not off that." I said, "Well, that's because you're analog, isn't it? Your sound it comes in and out." She said, "I can hear all symbols so clearly." I said, "Well, that's the difference between your analog and digital. Digital's crap. I'd rather have crackles and listen to alt music and musical instruments." But maybe that's my nostalgia.
Hey, I told you in another stream, I used to actually work in a sound
Yeah,
where we actually had a lathe that cut vinyl. So I appreciate the vinyl, I definitely do.
Yeah.
But when a little bit of dust on the surface of your disc can cause all that popping and crackling, it does get annoying.
Oh, what you got going on behind you there, Peter?
Oh, that's Nightmare Highway for the Coco 2 and Coco 1 and Coco 3. It's I don't know if it's a joke game or not. What it is it's a game that was written by Ken Reichard, who's one of the guys who's in a Coco group over there in the US. And basically what they have is they have Coco Fest every year. I'm sure, Todd, you're aware of it. Maybe some of you others
I've heard of it.
I'm aware of it. I haven't been, but we have a little. Where I live in Ohio, and about 50 miles from me is a town called Dayton, and they have a TRS-80. It's a color computer, but it ends up being all TRS-80s. A little group meet once a year. I've been to that, but I haven't been to the actual Coco Fest yet.
Oh, okay, yeah, but no, I'd love to be able to go to any of them, to tell you the truth. But it's kind of, the US is a long way to go and justify just for a few days at looking at 40-year-old hardware, you know. But no, this particular game, there was a guy, I can't remember his name, Terry Steen, I think it is, who wrote a number of games for the Coco way back. So he was a well-known programmer for the Coco itself. And he was on his way to Coco Fest, and he crashed into a couch as he traveled down the highway. And it was a freak accident, but the guy wasn't hurt or anything. But Ken Reichard, he commemorated this moment by writing this game. So it's a kind of a tongue-in-cheeky kind of a jokey type thing. I'd say that it's not a bad little game either, though. But yeah, so it's a kind of a running joke in the Coco community as well. But it's just a little game where you're a car driving down the highway and you're avoiding sofas and that kind of stuff, and you have to pick up fuel along the way and that kind of thing. So I just put it on as something to have in the background as a conversation piece, and it's kind of worked, hasn't it? Yes, but that's that's what that is. So that's running on the old Coco 2 that I have here, which is freshly resurrected because I actually thought I had killed it about 6 months ago. I was trying to upgrade the processor in it, and it didn't work anymore afterwards. So it took a couple of months, but it sprang back to life one evening. So I'm kind of happy to have it back again.
What was that to a 6309?
It was a 6809 that was in it, so I updated it to a 6309. Yeah. So there was a couple of upgrades I've done on that system. I mean, they're basic ones, really. When I got it, it was a 16K system. I updated it to 64, and it had color basic 1.3, I think. And I put in a second ROM, extended color basic. Just to bring it kind of up to where I could get it. But it's still a PAL system. So unfortunately, 80% of the games that were written for the Coco computers, they use NTSC
artifact colors. Yeah.
Which means that really on an NTSC TV, they've exploited the NTSC technology in such a way that they can display colors on the screen that really shouldn't be there. But that obviously isn't going to work on a PAL TV. Now, Todd would know an awful lot more about that than I would. But what it means is an awful lot of games we get in black and white on the PAL systems, you know. So I'll tell you
what you can do. You can solve that problem if you can hook an RGB to HDMI up to it.
Well, can you though? Because
you can.
Yeah, you can. And the RGB to HDMI does the artifact color in software, so it'll work for you in PAL.
Would it? Because
it does.
I know that there's a 555 timer involved to do something with the NTSC signal in the NTSC board, if you like. All that circuitry is missing in the PAL system. So I know there are people who have managed to convert the PAL systems to NTSC with a little bit of hackery and taking out chips and this, that, and the other. But they had to build an entire 555 timer circuit in order to, I don't know, it's something to do with the some way that they shift the signal, or I don't know what the heck they're doing, but
Phase.
it changes, yeah, to shift the phase somewhat, and it changes the actual colors on screen. And before they there's a few things need to be done. You need to change the crystal number 1, and then there is another chip inside in the PAL system that isn't in the NTSC, and its function is to take the signal from the video chip and to convert it over to PAL, because obviously the resolution is different between NTSC and PAL, and there's one, and of course the frequency as well, the 50 to 60 hertz thing. So there's a few little changes like that that need to be done. Then there's the 555 timer chip needs to be put in, because if not, the colors are screwed up. And there is another thing as well. Oh yeah, there's another thing for me, because the guy who managed to do that, he was in Australia, so he had like a regular PAL system with RF out, so he had a few extra chips in there. This is the French version of the Coco, which is a RGB SCART version, so it gives a lovely image on screen, but there are no schematics for this system available anywhere on the web, and a huge amount of the circuitry is completely different than what you find in the PAL or the NTSC system. So it makes it a kind of a very, very complicated task. But I will try what you said, Todd. I will try that to see, because I'd love to be able to get NTSC colors on it. So
it actually should be relatively easy with that machine, because as you said, it's got the SCART RGB out.
That's right, yeah.
Since the RGB to HDMI takes an RGB input, I mean, you've got to have the analog board for it as well, but it'll take the analog RGB input. And like I said, in software, it reads those pixel positions, which that's kind of how the artifact color works, is by how pixels are lined up with each other.
Okay.
And certain ways it causes one color, and certain ways it causes another color, because of the phase shift in the color burst signal, and the which you have color burst in PAL and NTSC. And because the Coco used a weird clock frequency, that's how that all happened. It's an accident. They used a weird oscillator frequency, and they could only get close to where they needed to be. And because they got close, there's a phase difference that if you start it up one time, it's in one phase, and if you start it up another time, it's in different.
You'd have to. So that's what the reset thing was between the red and the blue thing. Yeah. Okay, I see.
But since the RGB to HDMI actually reads where those pixels are and knows, it's in software how it reads them where they are and knows to pick it color.
I will definitely give that a try. So there's one other thing that I will try. I was going to try it, and then I kind of scrapped the idea. Was with the what's the name of it? There is a chip. I can't remember the name of it now, but there is a little chip that I was using before that will convert RGB SCART into composite or S video, and it is the 724JR, I think. It's a little video chip anyway, and yeah, I've used that on many systems, because before I only had one TV and it didn't have a SCART input on it. It was a German TV. So as most of my systems here are French, they are SCART. So I needed something to convert the true RGB synchronous signals over to composite or S video. So I built up this little box, but it only takes PAL signals. So I'd have to modify it so that it would take a PAL signal and convert it to a NTSC. So I'll try doing that, and I'll see if that works. And if that doesn't work, I'll probably make a video on it. But if that doesn't work, I will try your suggestion with the SCART to HDMI and see.
I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but the Dragon 32 is almost the same as a Coco 2.
It is almost the same.
For the PAL version of that, they absolutely bastardized the NTSC signal so that the PAL would decode it. Now, if you put an RGB to HDMI on a PAL Dragon, you can still use the artifact colors.
It could well be. It probably is somewhat the same. I mean, as far as I know, between the Dragon and the Coco 2, the Dragon
There's only a couple
32 and the Coco
Yeah.
2. There's the only difference is the ROM inside in the system.
Yeah.
And the keyboard matrix as well. Some of the keys are different.
Exactly.
So yeah, it may be possible to. It may be. So I'll try all that because I would love that, and it'd be something to do.
Well, on a completely different note. Go on, Todd.
Just real quick, be fair. You're gonna get the games that used artifact colors. Those are definitely not the best games the Cocos have to offer. So,
but
No.
if you're running a Coco, you kind of expect that. It's just like if you're running an Amstrad, you know what's coming. Anyway, on a completely different note, Steve has had a massive dose of good karma again.
Oh, he has, yeah.
With some Amiga gear. So why don't you explain that one? You lucky bastard.
Yeah,
I'm just in an Amiga group, and this
we're
guy,
not jealous at all.
this guy had come on into an Amiga group, and he'd only just joined into Amiga group. We were into the Amigas way back in the day. We're into MIDI stuff and stuff like that. And what he said is, what I saw of the advert was an Amiga A1200 for £100. And I thought, cracking, I'll have that, thanks. Little to my knowledge is that I spotted afterwards that there were an accelerator card there, which was a Phase 5, Blizzard PPC Phase 5 accelerator on it, 040. And then when I went to go and pick it up, there were actually 2 Amiga A1200s in the deal, and they both had accelerator cards. So obviously, I spoke to a guy and chatted about the value of things, and we come to a deal, and that's what I did. I bought it. But in the Amiga group, there was somebody in there that was saying, "Oh no, don't! That Phase 5 is worth £1,000. Don't sell it. Don't sell it. You don't want to be selling that. You're scamming yourself and this that, and other." I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody on there anyway that were doing it. And when I went to pick them up, he'd actually said to me, that person that were on there were doing their best for me not to sell them Amigas. They even sent me private messages telling me not to sell them to me and stuff like that. And I thought, well, that's a bit naughty, isn't it? You know, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. If the guys put it up for a price and somebody's accepted it, job's done, isn't it, at the end of the day, you know. But like I said, I was unknown that there were 2 Amiga 1200s. Anyway, I've got them back here. One Amiga 1200, they were both dead. Obviously, I didn't start them straight up, so one of them I opened it up, and it had an accelerator card in it. Can't think where they are now. One of them, I don't know what card it is, but it had a card in it, and when it come across this side, there was another plug-in card that went straight up underneath the disk drive to the back. It looked a bit like a 25-pin, normal serial one, like that.
Oh.
That's what it looked like. It were on the back of it, and I was like, it's a bit strange. But anyway, there were bits of tape all over it. You could see that somebody had put a jumper cable in it, so they'd put a normal IDE hard drive in there. It had the cable amended so it could accommodate the IDE cable. So it was a little bit butchered inside with stuff. So I stripped it all back, took everything away from it, put it back to standard, pulled the accelerator card out, and boom, it just sprung into life. So I thought, awesome stuff.
Nice.
No capacity leakages on it at all. I've had a right good look around it. Yeah, I know they want changing, but it's perfectly fine. Not a problem at all. The other one, I opened that up again. It had an accelerator inside it. Did that one have an accelerator inside it? No, that had the phase one that were in it. The Blizzard, the PPC one. Again, that was black screened. So I pulled the accelerator card off that one. Tried it again, still black screened. Tried diagnostic ROMs in it, still black screened. Eventually I got it to sort of, you got like red lines across the top of the screen all the way down, and they were rolling. So I thought, well, maybe it's a video sync issue on that one. Next thing I know, I've got a red screen from it, which is normally a ROM issue. Then I got a green screen from it. and then I got a green and red flashing screen from it. Then I got a rolling screen from it, and then I just thought, you know what, put it back together, put it over there for another day. But yes, I ended up with 2 Amiga 1200s and 2 great accelerator cards. Both them cards are dead, so I need to look into them to see why they're not working. But yeah, it were a cracking deal with that. Very surprised.
Well, you hear stories about people getting good deals on stuff, and it's just nice to see it actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I picked them up as well, and not somebody that's just going to buy them and flip them. You know, a lot of people have just snapped that up and gone, "Ooh, I can bang that straight on eBay and get £250 a piece for them A1200s." You know, I'm not about that. Yeah, my Commodore stuff that I buy generally stays with me. I know I've sent one down for you, Neil, because you were wanting one, weren't you? I'll do that. I don't mind letting things go to people that's in the community or people that's got a passion for it or something like that. But I'm not just going to sell it on Facebook so some kid can buy it and then chuck it in bin afterwards because they can't be bothered with it. You know, they've got to go to somebody that's going to care for them. For me.
Well, fixing them accelerators might be a problem.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Sorry, Neil, go on.
I said he has to vet them first before he sends the machine off.
Is that what's going on with my Specky?
No, I still need to find out how much that postage is, mate, and I will sort it out. I haven't forgotten. But I will sort that out. Wow, what's wrong with 64?
What's that?
Yeah. It's all right, 64, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't say anything about 64.
Oh, I thought you did, sorry.
No, I said, no, you have to vet them. You have to check them out before you send anything out, I said.
Yeah, too right you do. You've got to make sure it's all working before it leaves.
Yeah, about 64. No, 64 I'm really happy with.
Yeah, I mean, not like that you're sending away. You should check it before it leaves, shouldn't you? Because you know yourself. They're like a light bulb out there, vintage stuff. You turn it off one day and turn it back on, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know.
Not only that, when you send them halfway around the world, it's 50-50, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're sending them to someone like one of us who likes to repair them, that's fine.
Yeah.
He'd prefer if he got it and didn't work.
That what?
I said he'd prefer if he opened it up and it didn't work, he'd go bonus.
Yeah, at least you can do a video on it then.
Exactly.
Oh, there'll be a video on it, whether it works or not.
What do you recommend for a minimal workshop for repairing retro things? Depends.
A desk.
That's a very big question.
Just a desk will do.
Yeah.
For start desk, it's just fine.
And a decent soldering iron.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I'd recommend, Viddy, is if you're around our age, then a pair of magnifying glasses. Because that's got to be my most used tool. What them on, then I can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, I got the goggles. I got reading glasses that I wear almost all the time when I'm working, and I've got one of those lighted, ring with magnifier in the middle. I use that a lot. So yeah, that's a very important tool.
Yeah. The other thing is a decent soldering iron.
Yeah, exactly. A decent one, not a cheap one.
Yeah,
it can't be cheap, it's decent.
No,
definitely one that has adjustable temperature.
Exactly, yeah. Otherwise, you're lifting pads all the while.
Yeah, the fixed ones are almost always too hot.
If money is a concern, a really cheap soldering iron that doesn't have adjustable temperature is fairly good too, if you're careful with it. Because that's what I was using for a long time in the beginning. I built many boards with that, and they worked away fairly well. The only problem is you will burn out tips a lot. That's the only thing. If you're soldering for a number of hours and it's on a lot, you will burn out tips and you'll have to change it a bit. But if money really is a concern, I think all you really need is a cheap enough soldering iron with a couple of tips for it and a good multimeter. That's it.
Yeah.
I think
A good multimeter.
That's enough to begin with.
And another thing I would say, a lot of people will tell you that a logic probe is enough. In my experience, it just isn't.
Scope.
an oscilloscope, and you can get cheap oscilloscopes these days that'll do fine for these 8-bit machines. You know, you don't have to have a big fancy desktop one or one of the I forget what the name of the one Adrian Black uses is. That's
Handtech one is
$4,000. You don't have to get that. You can get a $60 to $120 oscilloscope. You know, a little handheld one, and it'll do the job for you. But it's way better than just trying to use a logic probe. Because the logic probe, it barely tells you anything.
That's the one you want, isn't it, Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Handtech.
Sorry, Peter, go on.
No, I never ever had a logic probe. I saw them in the beginning, and I thought they'd be a good deal to go for. And I heard that very thing being said, that an oscilloscope was the thing to get, and I couldn't afford it. So I didn't take anything at all. And in the end, I ended up getting a little, you know, one of those little kit ones that cost very, very little that you build yourself. Oscilloscope, but it wasn't a great thing at all. It really wasn't all that great, but it was okay. But Tron Magnum, who's in the comments there, he got me a fantastic little oscilloscope, and I haven't thanked him enough for it. So thanks again, Tron. But they're a fantastic little thing. An oscilloscope is a fantastic little thing to go for as well. Yeah. But in the very beginning, a good multimeter, I think, is maybe enough. And there are some multimeters you can get that'll actually test for frequency as well, which is very handy to have, because that's something I was missing for a very, very long time. And it's something that can be useful at times. If you're building a board or whatever, you want to check that clock signals are okay. Yeah. A multimeter is...
It's going to come in handy for them accelerators then, isn't it?
Yeah, you're definitely going to want a scope on that.
So, does anybody recognise that?
No.
What's that?
No. That's I don't recognise that.
Don't know. No. I mean, that's obviously... That's what I was talking about before, when it had that plug on the back of it that came out of the back. But I don't know what that card is. I've never seen it before. But
is there a processor on it?
Does it what?
That add-on card, has it got a processor on it? Wondered if it was like a SCSI or something.
I don't know the other way to see it or not, but
it could be. I can't see that. That might be a SCSI card.
Yeah, strange. And obviously that was the phase 5. The 040. It's got some RAM missing off it, a slot crossed off there. Needs another 32 mega RAM on it. But neither of them boot anyway, just black screens. So I would imagine it'll be RAM sticks that'll be causing most of that, unless they've got fried CPUs.
Well, one of them's got an FPU on it. You can always pop that off. Just so you're testing without it on there. It's one less thing to get in the way.
Yeah, that one does. That comes off.
Yeah. Well, you could remove that and test without the FPU on it.
Yeah.
It's an idea. It'd be nice if it'd been an 060, but hey, I'm not arguing.
Yeah, they're like very rare they are now.
Yeah, like rocking our shit.
Apparently, they were fitted in telephone communication boxes, you know.
What, 060s?
Yeah, apparently they were. I can't remember what mate they were. Because I was looking for someone who used to work in the recycling industry. Yeah, the actual telephone control boxes had 060s in.
Bloody hell.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Not to be jumping back, but VidiTV, one other thing that pops into my mind as a tool that's very useful in the lab is a decent bench power supply. A lot of times you're not going to want to use, particularly with Commodores, you're not going to want to use the power supplies that came with them, because they do go bad, but other machines as well. And it's very handy to have a bench power supply. And what you want is one that has both overcurrent and overvoltage protection. Now you can get them for $60 or so, so it's not a huge expense, but it's worth it.
If you want to go down the DIY route, I think you can get these like fascia boards that have got a display on and two encoder knob sort of things, and you can use an old PC power supply to give you a whole range of different voltages.
Yeah. Be good enough to build one out of that one. Yeah, I was just a PC power supply.
ATX, yeah.
For me, the biggest difference I found was when I discovered a pair of soldering irons. I use a KS Jur, which is a cheapy AliExpress job, and it takes T12 tips, but removable. And the whole tip contains the thermistor and everything in it. So you plug it in like a cartridge, and they're phenomenal. They're really, really good, and they do like 50 different types of tip. So if you're someone that likes to get in there, or really thin ones, you can get a whole range of different tips. They're cheap as chips. And the second one was a TS100, which is like a pen, and you can run it from a USB power supply if you wanted to.
Suggest that, yeah, the USB ones.
And it's phenomenal.
You've got the Pine-Sol, which is it's basically the same as the
similar, yeah.
100. The only difference is the Pine-Sol actually has a USB-C connector for the power. As I understand, the TS100 has a barrel jack, doesn't it?
As both, as a barrel, and above it as a micro USB.
Oh, okay.
But they're brilliant. But they're a bit more expensive. I think they're about 50 quid. But my other half got me one the other Christmas, and I ended up making myself a lump of silicon cable to power it from a power supply, and it's just so nice because the silicon cable is just super flexible, and you can just lovely. That and decent flux.
Yeah, you can't solder out flux.
I was actually about to say, don't cheap out on your consumables.
No.
Yeah.
Get good solder, get good flux, get good braid. Solder braid will be useful, but don't cheap out on those when you're buying them. I mean, they're not going to be huge amounts of money anyway, but don't buy the cheapest thing you can find.
I use cheap flux, but I use that Amtech stuff.
Amtech's good.
The gel, and that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's the best. And I'll tell you another good thing to use as well is get some of this stuff, solder paste. We use that. No?
That's what I use. The solar paste. I have that in bar. That's most for SMD stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, but no, it's good.
I've got that.
Yeah.
If
you sold any chips on with legs or stuff, it's good for that, I find.
I did some stencil. I made a load of Pytrexes, and I sent you one, Steve. Yeah. And I made them with a stencil, and you just spread it on, don't you? And then I've got this hot plate, and it
with a hot gun. It just mates itself, goes in the right place. It's amazing to watch under a microscope. It's quite entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite therapeutic to watch it, actually, won't it?
Oh, definitely. What about you, Josip? What do you like?
For equipment?
Yeah.
Well, I just use the cheap soldering iron, nothing really special. So for my kind of projects that I do, I mostly do just 2 holes. Yeah, something similar. Where is it?
Mine's just a cheapo.
I don't know. Can you see this?
Maplins.
Oh, that's isn't that a Weller one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's not cheap, though.
Exactly.
No, this is a
Mine's
copy.
cheap, though.
Mine's really heavy, man.
Jesus, only in Croatia, they've gone top drawer.
There you go. I've got a JBC clone.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, because I always use JBC soldering irons at work, and I really love them things anyway. So I look for an AliExpress clone of one. It's really good. Same as you've got like hot swap tips. Look.
That's a similar sort of cartridge, yeah.
Yeah, really good. Brilliant, yeah. And also it heats up within like 10 seconds. It's straight hot.
Yeah.
No problem, yeah. Brilliant, yeah.
It's not how good your tool is, it's what you do with it.
Oh, whatever.
I seem to keep saying this to you, Steve, but that's what she said.
To be honest, though, I did upgrade me desoldering gun to one of these, and this is so much better. Like, with a, instead of having the pump built into the actual, I wouldn't get one of them again with a pump built into the gun. It's not good.
No.
Yeah, Vidi, they're talking, obviously talking about desoldering irons now. You can get away without one. I mean, if you have good braid, if you have a good little hand pump, you can get away without a desoldering gun, desoldering station. But if you're going to be doing this a lot, you could do a lot worse than to get a desoldering station. And again, you don't have to spend a ton of money. I think I spent maybe around $100 US on the one that I bought. It's by a company, or its brand name is Yihua or something like that. I think I got it from AliExpress, and it works a treat. As long as you keep the tip clean, it works a treat.
Exactly.
And I'd never go back at this point. But
no, I wouldn't as well. I do still use wick, obviously, now and again.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, there are times when it's just the best thing for the job, and it does allow you to clean your work area better than the desoldering gun or even the hand pumps will do. The wick will clear away everything and you start fresh.
So in terms of wick, when you use wick, do you cut a little bit off and fold it, or do you use?
I'm usually too lazy to do that. I just use it on the spool.
I do.
But I do realize that there is a big advantage.
Yeah, heat transfer, and also
you get
Depends how tough it is, doesn't it?
You don't lose so much heat to the spool when you're cutting off a piece. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Kenwick's pretty good.
Sorry.
Kenwick. That's pretty good.
Chemwick or MG Chemicals, I think. I think.
Yeah, I like MG stuff. But if you have got some cheap, shitty wick, what you can do is put a drop of flux on it.
Yeah.
That'll soon pull it off.
Or put some fresh solder on it as well.
Yeah.
That picks up.
Fresh leaded solder. You don't want to put fresh unleaded. You don't want to use unleaded solder no matter what.
No, that's shitty stuff, that is.
Bad, yeah. And oftentimes that's what's on the boards when they come from the factory. The wave solderers they use are unleaded unleaded solder. So you kind of have to sometimes add a little bit of leaded to mix in there, and it drops the melting temperature, so you can easily get the solder off.
I've got some Wharton Metals 60-40 mix, rosin based solder. It's brilliant. I tend to buy two different sizes, 0.7 and 0.4. Because if you're trying to do SMD stuff with 0.7, you're just pissing in the wind. It just goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, 0.4 solder's good. It's just as cheap.
It's like poking your 64 with a brush.
Yeah. Oh, Josip stepped out. I was going to say he's got an electron on the wall behind him.
Yeah, he loves his electron, doesn't he?
I've got one, it's dead.
You got a dead electron?
Yeah.
My dad had one with a plus 3 expansion port, was it? It plugged in the back.
Yeah.
It turned into like a BBC B, basically.
Yeah.
No, well, I don't know about that.
Well, it's similar, wasn't it? But yeah.
I think the electron only had a 4-bit bus.
Yeah.
So it's like they took all the good bits out of the BBC. They went, there you go, here's your electron.
I've been watching a couple of Acorn computers on eBay, one Electron and one Atom, and because I want to get a hold of these, I'd love to get a hold of a BBC Micro or even a BBC Master, but those are harder to find.
I think I've got some coming soon, I think.
But
I've got a Master.
yeah, but I've been watching them on eBay, and they'll sit for like a week. They'll sit at 10 bids, $100 US, and then right at the last second they jump up to $500. So,
Yeah. The Masters hold good money. I wanted the two-piece compact one that's got the separate keyboard.
I remember.
Yeah.
But I managed to get an all-in-one unit that's quite nice. And I bought the Pi adapter and shit like that to do some videos. I just ain't got round to it.
I want to explore it because I've never obviously used one. They didn't come over here more than a couple. But again, another reason I want to get a hold of them is because that's another one of those nice history stories that I'd like to, delve into and talk about on my channel. For the people who
think it was a good system back in the day.
Yeah,
That's what we had at school. That's what I had at school, basically.
They made the prototype for that in 3 days, from concept to prototype.
I've seen Microman. I know.
But the BBC is a really advanced machine for what it is.
It seems like it was pretty advanced for its time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it surprised me when I've seen some videos lately of some of the games that were on it. How
Yeah, some of them are truly shocking. They're
but I look at
level.
I look at them and I think particularly the BBC Micro, right? I think of it as a machine that was targeted towards schools, and I think it shouldn't have much in the way of capabilities game wise. And then I see the games, and they're actually not too terrible bad.
Imaging was great.
Yeah.
There was one good game called Imaging, which I really liked.
Elite.
Daredevil Dennis.
Elite. Yeah, I can remember Elite coming out, and it was big on the Arc. Was it on the Arc? What was the one on the Archimedes, the 3D one that came out? When that came out?
Zarch.
It might have been something like that, but that's what he pushed all the while with the Archimedes, I remember.
Yeah. It's a weird fucking critter ship that went over this landscape.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Zarch. I could never control it. I had to go on it. I'd always fucking turn turtle and crash.
It used to blow out like little squares from an engine, didn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Particles.
Yeah.
No, the BBCs are good. I like them. But graphically, they're let down in the multicolour mode quite badly. It's very blocky.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Electron, that was really crippled when they released that. I think that's probably why it didn't do so well. Yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
I've got a dead one, Joseph. I've got a dead one.
But the Electron did have a really nice keyboard.
Yeah, they have fantastic keyboard, and this one actually works. And I really enjoy typing on these machines. They're really enjoyable to type in, and I like my YARC. I know it's a crappy machine, but I really like it.
I don't know about the Electron, but I think the BBC. Well, I know the BBC. You can do inline assembler with your BASIC.
You can do it here also. Yeah. It's just missing some of the modes are disabled. They're not. They're actually quite slower machine in general, but you can do assembly as well. Yeah, you have full BBC Basic in it. So,
yeah, that was one of the best basics. That was.
Yeah. I try to learn now BBC Basic. It's not very easy to learn. There's so many things inside. Yeah. So
it's quite a complex system, really, what BBC.
What was the network called on the BBC? We had it at school.
EcoNet.
Yeah, you could escape out of it. You could just edit everything in BASIC. So we used to put our names in and everything like we'd written and everything. That's how it was, I remember. You could just basically escape out of it and just change everything.
Everything was star, wasn't it? Star I am, star dot.
Exactly, yeah. I remember doing that at school.
Yeah, that's all we had at school. We all BBCs.
No, we had Masters, and just as I left, they got an Archimedes. I remember.
I've never owned one of them.
I left in 91 of this.
In the States, obviously, we didn't have a big government program like you guys did to push computer literacy, but what our schools typically had was Apple IIs. That was the machine that got out into the education market the strongest. A few TRS-80s here and there, but then, of course, when the original IBM PC, the 5150, came out, all schools started adopting those.
What about 16 bits? What do you like with them, Peter?
I had an Amiga back in 1991.
Nice.
And that was as far as I really got 16-bit wise. And I used that for a while and I liked it, but I was never really mad into the Amiga, you know. I enjoyed the computer, I learned a lot from it, but it never really spoke to me like the VIC had or the C64 did. And but yeah, I mean, as collecting computers and that kind of thing now, I kind of leave the 16-bit computers to one side. Even the consoles, I don't have any of them. And to be honest with you, I can't really see myself picking up any of them because I think they're a little bit harder to repair as well. As the technology went on, things got smaller, it got more complex, and it's more work, I think. That's the way I see it. Personally, that's the way I see it. But the 8-bit stuff appeals to me a lot more. And when it comes to watching YouTube videos and that kind of stuff, I'm generally kind of pulled towards the 8-bit stuff more so than the 16-bit stuff in, videos that people have created as well. So I think it's just that appeals to me more. That's kind of my little niche, more or less, and that's what I like. My son, he has Mega Drive and all that kind of stuff. He has Mega Drive, SNES, and all those kind of systems that are more 16-bit. Doesn't really appeal to me. I'll be honest. I made up a video cable for one or two of the systems he got, but apart from that, no, it doesn't speak to me. That kind of way. Although I do appreciate the fact that 2 Amiga 1200s for £100 is a fantastic deal. I appreciate that fact.
That was only the latest one. The other week, he had another, like a storage bin find.
Yeah.
He found Ataris and all sorts of shit in there, didn't you?
What were there? There were 2 MSXs, 64K MSXs. There were 2 Amiga 500s, one were boxed. Commodore 64 printers, etc. Disk drive. 2 Atari ST, no, not Atari ST, sorry. The 800 XL and the 65XE.
Superb machines.
There was something else and all, I've forgotten that, but they would just get all games with them and everything like that.
And someone had tossed them all, had they?
It was a guy that contacted me. He had a storage lockup where they were all in it, and he just wanted to get rid of his storage locker. He said, just come over and make me a bid on it. So I went over and made a bid on it, and he accepted it and snapped it out of my hand, and it were a low baller. And I was like, should have offered less. No, I'm only kidding. But he took it and loaded car up and come home. And I mean, in the stuff that were in there, it's just unbelievable. There was the Spectrum. They released about 6 or 8 games or something on cartridge.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, and there was the adapter as well for the back of it for cartridge slot. I threw that straight up on Spectrum site for £100, all in, buy it now, and it went within 5 seconds.
Ah, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Neil telling me he said you'd seen one, didn't you, that were untested it went sold for 97.
Exactly,
I mean, I could have asked a lot more for it, but I'm not greedy at the end of the day. And if somebody wants out there wants one at a reasonable price, then fair enough, they can have it. As you can see, I'm here. This runs right through my blood.
So all the way, huh?
Spectrum stuff can, you know what I mean? Bring on the love for the Amstrad. No, but it's mainly Commodore for myself, and most of that stuff that ain't Commodore. If I ain't got one, I'll probably keep it, and the other stuff I'll move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had a couple of good hauls over the last couple of months.
Yeah, no, you've been lucky. You've definitely been lucky.
Definitely lucky,
It doesn't normally happen. It doesn't normally happen.
I mean, I found that Jaguar, didn't I? That was like I say, that was lucky finding a Atari Jaguar.
Bloody right.
Yeah.
What'd you get for it? 40 quid, wasn't it?
Yeah, with a load of other consoles, with 4 more. Yeah.
Got right enough for that.
Mainly Binatones and stuff like that, but game systems. But like I say, yeah, it is worth it with a controller as well. But it's in a bad state. You saw it. It looks like it's been left in a shed for about 6 years. And it's 80% working now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still getting there.
Still got to get that 20% working on it.
Yeah, but that 20%'s composite.
Yeah, but I know you love composite. I know. It's working on RGB in it. You can play games on it.
Yeah.
But like I say, you can't get the composite working.
How's the A600 doing?
This thing. It's still here. It's black screening now. Let's get black screen. I want to program what's his name? A diag for it, but I haven't got any chips.
You'll need an adapter for your program as well.
I was going to ask you like that. Actually, I need an adapter.
You can usually get them off eBay.
Yeah. Okay, so I need to program a diagram for it and try that.
Yeah. It swaps some of the pin arrangements around. That's all it does.
Yeah. It does what's his name. You power it on an RGB and the signal goes like it's just black screens. And I've tried that capacitor, which is a normal one, which is this one in it by the timer. And it's not that one. I think that's usually on the A600 that causes black screens. But yeah, unfortunately not. But yeah, I've rebuilt all the tracks. Hopefully it works. CPU's getting warm.
Shorted.
No, it's not that warm, but it's warming up, you know what I mean?
Well, the Kickstart ROMs got warm, and I was checking them Amiga 1200s out. I was swapping them for diagrams to see if I could get something out of it. Put it back in and thinking, why ain't that bloody showing all up now? Put my hand on top chip, and it nearly burnt my fingers. It was that hot.
No way.
And I put the bloody Kickstart ROM in wrong way around.
Oh.
Should have had this on. Anyway, I swapped it back round and it booted up fine. Oh, I'm very surprised.
How'd you get on with the Atari, Steve?
Which one?
The XE.
I haven't done out with it really. I haven't done any more with it anyway. I will put in the 65 XE out, won't I? In the sun. It did all right. I just haven't had a chance to put it out anymore. And I needed it to dry out as well because it rained.
Have you not run any more software on it?
Not until it's dried out.
Have you only got one?
No, I've got the XL, haven't I? And I've got the XE as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the XE that ended up swimming with fishes because it rained on it.
Ah.
Something like dishwasher.
Running water straight out. It'll be dry out. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get air dryer on it.
Really nice.
Mm. It will do. I'm going to end up a retro bright, I reckon. But the sun brighting was working, but it just problem is with me. You see, I don't want to put it out front of my house because people walk by and they'll see it and it'll end up getting bloody pinched or interfered with or something. So I have to put it out in the backyard. So I've got to wait until about 10 o'clock until the sun starts to get in the backyard. And then about 4 o'clock, it goes behind the trees. So I'm screwed. So you only get about 6 hours sun where normally you could probably get a good 14 hours sun in it. So it's been out for about 5 or 6 days and it has a good colour difference.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't know that I can show you. I don't know that I can show you if I try and show you this. I've still got it. Yeah, it's there.
They're a bit like the ST with the plastic though, Steve. You've got to be a bit careful. It's brittle as shit.
Share a screen. That one. You can bring that up if you want. So that's sort of product where I got to with it.
Yeah, that amazed me. That was just in the sun.
And that was just sun.
That's such a big difference.
Yeah, that shit didn't work for me at all.
That's what I couldn't understand. I think you swapped it.
I put it out for a few days. There didn't seem to be much happening to it. And then we had a day that were really hot. And that seemed to make a difference. Unless I was just getting past the tipping point, if you know what I mean, before it came on, before it started working. But it hasn't seemed to do much again afterwards. So I think it needs to have a certain level of UV, certain level of heat from the sun. I mean, it's not too bad if you're over somewhere where it's nice hot temperatures. It'll probably work really, really well. But for here in UK doing Sunbright, if you want to spend 2 weeks putting it in the sun, do so. I'd rather cream it up and bang it out for 5 hours and it's done.
Well, the way that I've tried it, I've had good sunlight, and I mean, my C128, I did that for a week, and it made fuck all difference.
Yeah.
But if you do really want to give them a good go, though, when you get one working, because the Atari is probably the closest machine to the 64, spec-wise, out of all the 8-bit machines.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's like I said, with the XL and the XE, I didn't really want to go out and start spending money on SD cards for it if I didn't like the system. So I was going to try and work another way around it. And then I thought about, putting an audio mod onto tape deck, a bit like what these videos for the Commodore stuff. Especially they open that tape deck up, and it looks so much like the Commodore 64 inside that tape deck. It was unbelievable.
Steve, the tapes take an epically long time to load.
I know. That's fun, isn't it?
I don't know about that.
But it don't cost you. I'm Yorkshireman. I'm tight. Come on.
I mean, I thought the Amstrad tapes take a long time to load in, but the Atari takes a biscuit.
Yeah, they do.
They are long loaders.
They do. I mean, most of them tapes that come with it, when I tried loading it through typing CAS, didn't work, obviously, but I was unknown to me about holding them keys down for the other side of it. Once I'd done that, they all loaded, apart from about 2 loose tapes. But other than that, they were spot on. I was quite impressed. But yeah, you're right, they do take a long time to load. We thought 64 took a long time to load.
Yeah, but you used to sit there as a kid and you didn't notice, did you?
I did.
64, because you had a lovely great big picture there. There's some great music coming out of the system.
Exactly, it's different, wasn't it? Now you might think, it takes forever, but when you were a kid, you just sat there and put up with it. You're used to things like that taking time.
Well, you didn't know any different, did you?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But now you give a kid it now and say, watch this, and they're probably thinking, what's it doing?
Yeah, well, what did they do? What did they do when they fire the PlayStations up? They turn the PlayStation on. It goes, it needs an update.
Yeah, even then,
update loads in.
Exactly.
Yeah, these days are even worse with those updates and everything. So
yeah,
you're back at the beginning again, waiting for the game to load.
Again, yeah. Yeah, this game needs an update 3 hours later.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a kid, I had the final cartridge, and I used to snapshot the game and blast it back to tape.
Mm-hmm.
And used to be able to load it in on 10 on the tape count.
Speed loaded.
It was like mega fast.
Whoa.
Yeah, there were a big, massive difference. Even freeze frame cartridge used to do the same thing, didn't it?
Yeah. That had a warp speed loader for the disc that was brilliant.
Yeah. I loved my freeze frame cartridge back in the day. That was my save game option, that one.
The Action Replay 6, that put a little file on the end of the disc. And fuck me, that used to load it in proper quick.
Mm.
Do you think, what I've always thought about games nowadays, right? Do you know they release games now and then they think, it's a big bug, we've got to release an update. Do you think in the old days they tested them more?
No.
They couldn't take that bug out, could they? Not like
well,
today where they can release a patch.
sometimes they went out of bugs, didn't they? Look at RoboCop.
How's that? Oh, yeah.
Predator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that went out and that had all the levels corrupted.
Yeah, because apparently it was unfinishable, so they
That's it.
made it impossible to get to the end. Yeah.
I never
But I
remember
think-
any bugs, I don't.
It was generally just one guy in his bedroom coding it, wasn't it? That was generally the way it was done back in the day. Whereas nowadays, it's just like vast teams
Loads
of
of people
doing it. So
yeah.
there's more room for bugs and stuff to slip into.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're a lot more complex now as well, of course.
If you ever finish the game now, it's like watching the end of a movie with all the names going up in it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Crazy.
But
Well, I think this is probably an ideal time to close this stream off, as we've been going for almost 2 hours.
Yep.
So I'm just going to say goodbye. Thank you for watching.
Next time, it's his turn.
Yeah.
It's his
Yeah.
turn.
I can't get it on that way.
bye everyone.
Yeah. If you've enjoyed stream,
This is like one of the game shows, isn't it? What's that game show where all the windows?
Everyone's respective channel is in the description. Be sure to check out the links. And thanks for watching.
Vid TV, he says, okay, so when's the next one? We generally do the Retro Repairers stream the last Sunday in every month.
Yeah.
So look out for us on next time. The next one's going to be on Joseph Retro Brits' channel.
Yes.
And then after that, it's going to be on to Retro for You, and then it's back to myself.
Right. Okie dokie. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
Bye bye.